I had planned to speak about the underground wealth of Pomaria in this episode. But before that, we must go back to its origins to understand how this city evolved. When the Romans conquered this fertile and strategic land, they did what they did elsewhere in Africa. They established a permanent military camp, a castra stativa. 7 fortified hectares, an outpost of the army, a place under strict control, with no trace of civic autonomy. But things did not remain frozen in time. A few decades later, the camp expanded, doubling its surface area. And then a question arose. What had it become? Was it still just a military settlement, directly dependent on Rome? Or had it crossed a threshold, becoming a true municipium, with magistrates, autonomy, and political life of its own? Historians give us a lead. Peace and Canal, in their 1889 work, favored the latter hypothesis. Pomaria had indeed become a city in the early 230s, under the reign of Alexander Severus. To support their claim, they pointed to a milestone discovered in the Jewish cemetery of Tlemcen. Searching through the inscriptions published by Wilmans in 1881, I came across this very fragment. At its end, a cryptic acronym, RPP, Res Publica Pomariensium, the Republic of the Pomarians. In other words, Pomaria was no longer just a camp. It had become a civic community, with its own magistrates, duumviri and aediles, elected to manage the city's property and finances. And so the question arises, what justified such a promotion? Why had this remote military outpost in the backlands of Caesarea been granted the status of a city? The answer may lie beneath our feet. Pomaria was not sustained only by soldiers and walls. Its soil concealed precious resources, capable of drawing Rome's attention. Metals first, especially lead from Galena, indispensable to Roman urbanism. Then water and fertile land, without which no city could truly thrive. Remember, in the previous episode, we saw how central lead was to Roman urban development. But one question remains. Where did it come from? Was Galena this vital ore found near Pomaria? In 1850, this territory, newly taken by France, saw the army send the mining engineer Ludovic Ville to explore the Tlemcen region. In 1857, he published in Paris his mineralogical report on the provinces of Oran and Algiers. In it, a list of deposits, some showing traces of ancient exploitation. Nbale in the Jebel Nader range, 11 kilometers south of Tlemcen. The Jebel Tassa mine in Beni Sinus. Kudiat Air Reses near the Ald Mazais, around Sidi Yahya ben Sifia, 12 kilometers southwest of Sebdu, ancient Atoa. Agar Rabain in the lands of the Beni Bused, some 30 kilometers south of Magnia. Jerf el Hamar, near the shrine of Sidi Muhammad Belarua, 10 kilometers northwest of Magnia. Ville described narrow, irregular galleries. In his view, they were not Roman but Arab, a judgment that mostly reveals the colonial biases of his time. In 1928, historian Stephen Gassel revisited the debate. Many experts, he noted, were reluctant to attribute crude galleries to the Romans, preferring to see the hand of local populations. Yet modern research shows that mining techniques varied greatly across time and circumstances. In other words, one cannot judge solely from the shape of a tunnel. Gassel added a crucial detail. African mines never met the region's needs. Imports from Spain completed local production. In the ancient port of Caesarea, modern Churchill, ingots of lead have even been found stamped with the seals of Mercia. But then, around Pomaria, how was Galena extracted? In the early 20th century, André Lecoq described 2 methods used in Jebel Nader. First, fire. Miners filled the galleries with brushwood, set them ablaze, and under the heat, the lead melted, trickled down, and then solidified in the soil. Second, brute force. The ore was pried loose with jade picks, a stone surprisingly hard and resistant to shock. The extracted blocks were sorted, loaded onto pack animals, and carried to workshops. Heated and smelted, they became ingots. These ingots were sent to other workshops to be remelted and transformed into plates. The plates were hammered cold into an ovoid shape and sealed along a longitudinal seam to form conduits called fistulae, used in Roman aqueduct systems. These long pipes could measure up to 3 meters, with diameters of 30 centimeters for the main lines. The smaller pipes were less than 10. But another question arises. Did the Romans know lead was dangerous? Vitruvius, in his De Architectura, states it plainly. Water passing through lead pipes becomes unhealthy. The metal produces a white powder, cerulose, highly toxic. If this byproduct is poisonous, he reasoned, then so is the lead itself. He even advised using clay pipes instead, as safer and healthier. So yes, the Romans knew. And yet lead still flooded their cities. Some historians even see in this silent poison one of the causes of the decline of Rome's aristocracy, and perhaps even of the empire itself. We now reach the end of this episode devoted to Pomaria's underground resources, a wealth that was only part of its riches. For a city cannot endure on metal alone. It must also live from water and earth. In the next episode, we will uncover another vital treasure, water and agriculture.